Tov. Yesterday's Torah portion had the most important commandment in the Torah, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, to love your neighbor as yourself. And the million-dollar question is, how can the Torah tell us to love our neighbor as ourselves? Is it humanly possible even to love the other like yourself? Human nature is you love yourself more than anyone else. Furthermore, Rabbi Akiva, the rabbi who said love your neighbor as yourself is the most important principle of the Torah, says in the Talmud that if two people are walking in a desert and there's only one pitcher of water, and either I drink it or I give it to my friend to drink, one of us will live and one will die. Says Rabbi Akiva, Chayecha Kodmin, your life takes precedence and you drink the water, because as Hillel says, if I am not for myself, who will be for me? So Rabbi Akiva seems to imply you shouldn't necessarily love your neighbor as yourself, but your own life takes precedence. And so the Maggid Mezritch gives a very novel interpretation. And he says the commandment is not the way it's usually read, love your neighbor as yourself, because that's not possible to love someone else like yourself. But rather the commandment is, V'ahavta l'reacha, you shall love your neighbor. The question then is, how do you come to love your neighbor? So the verse gives us the method, the formula to achieve it. Kamocha, by realizing your friend is just like you. He's a human being just like you. You are just like him. You're no different. And just like you have feelings, he has feelings. And therefore, just like you want to be loved, you should love them. And just like you don't want anyone else to harm you, you shouldn't harm them. Because you should love your neighbor. Why? By realizing they are just like you. And that's why Hillel told a convert when he said, teach me all of Judaism as I stand on one leg. He said, you want to know what all of Judaism is? Don't do unto others what you don't want others to do unto you. Realize that that person is just like you, and just like you wouldn't want others to do it to you, you should not do it to them. You know, everyone understands that loving your neighbor as yourself means not to harm your neighbor, not to speak ill of your neighbor. But the truth is, if you think about the idea of loving your neighbor just like yourself, just like you love yourself, realize that person is just like you, then just like you don't want anyone to think bad thoughts about you, you want people to think positive thoughts about you, so too you should only think positive things about others. Even thinking negative is in a sense a violation of this commandment to love your neighbor just like you would want to be loved. And I want to tell you a powerful story. It's a true story that happened. There was once a rabbi who was a first grade teacher for many, many years, and he was at a wedding, and a man came up to him and introduced himself. He said, do you remember me? I was in your class 20 years ago in first grade in this yeshiva. And at first he didn't remember him, but then when he told him his name, he said, yeah, I remember you in my yeshiva. And they started talking. And then the rabbi said to the student, tell me, what do you do? And he said, I became a teacher of first grade students as well. He said, wow, that's amazing. He says, actually, you inspired me to become a teacher. He said, wow, I inspired you. How did I inspire you to become a teacher? He says, well, I'm sure you remember this incident. One time a kid in the class bought a very expensive toy, a new toy. And when the kid went to his backpack in the middle of the day, he saw that someone had taken his toy out of his backpack. It was stolen. And you said to all the kids in the class, I want whoever took it to return it right now. And I was so scared because I knew I stole it, and I didn't want to admit it because I was too embarrassed to admit that I stole it. And after a few minutes that nobody admitted to stealing it, you told the kids, I want everyone to put your backpack on my desk. And then you asked all the kids to turn around with their backs to my desk and close their eyes. And you said, I'm now going to search the backpacks to find the missing toy. And this boy said to his teacher at the wedding, when you said you're going to check the backpacks, I was so frightened. I said, now all the kids in the class are going to realize that I'm the thief. I'm going to be caught, and I'm going to be in so much trouble, and I'm going to be embarrassed. How will I ever face my friends again? I'll have a terrible reputation as a thief. But when you told everyone to turn around and close their eyes, I was so relieved. And you went through the backpacks, and you discovered the toy in my backpack, and then you told everyone to turn around and open their eyes. You returned the toy to the boy who was stolen from, but you never disclosed whose backpack you found it in. And my reputation was saved that day. And I was so grateful, and I realized the power of a good teacher, that I decided I want to become a teacher, to be that type of a teacher who cares and is sensitive about each and every child. The student said to the teacher, don't you remember this incident? And the teacher said, yes, I actually do remember the incident, but I didn't know it was you that stole the toy. And the student said, what do you mean? You found it in my backpack. The teacher said, well, After I told you to turn around and close your eyes, and I began to search the backpack, I first closed my eyes because I didn't want to know myself which student in my class was the thief. That's what it means to love another as yourself, to only maintain positive and good perspectives on one another. Have a wonderful day.